The shot came from 400 yards away, aimed directly at President Harrison's podium. In the VIP section, retired Marine Colonel Sarah Mitchell saw the glint of sunlight on metal in the warehouse window. She had exactly 3.2 seconds to make a decision that would change history. What happened next revealed why some heroes never truly retire. They just wait for the moment when their country needs them most. The sun blazed over Liberty Stadium in Phoenix, Arizona, as 50,000 supporters gathered for President James Harrison's campaign rally. The crowd energy was electric, flags waving, chants echoing, the kind of patriotic fervor that defined American democracy at its finest. In the VIP section behind the stage, retired Marine Colonel Sarah Mitchell adjusted her sunglasses and scanned the crowd with eyes that had never stopped being tactical. At 52, she moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had commanded troops in 3 combat zones. Today, she was just another supporter, or so everyone thought. Sarah had received the VIP invitation through her veterans organization. After 25 years of military service, including 2 tours in Afghanistan and 1 in Iraq, she now ran a nonprofit helping female veterans transition to civilian life. The invitation had been a nice gesture, but she'd almost declined. Crowds made her nervous these days. President Harrison took the stage to thunderous applause. A former governor and successful businessman, he had built his campaign on themes of national unity and economic growth. Whatever your politics, he was undeniably charismatic, his voice carrying easily across the packed stadium. "My fellow Americans," Harrison began, his voice booming through the sound system. "We gather here today not as Democrats or Republicans, but as patriots united in our love for this great nation." The crowd roared approval. American flags created a sea of red, white, and blue that stretched to the stadium's upper decks. Marine Corps Base Quantico, 1995 Second Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, had been 22 years old when she'd first raised her right hand and sworn to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. She was part of the first generation of women allowed into combat roles, facing skepticism from some fellow Marines who questioned whether women belonged in war zones. "You sure you can handle this, Mitchell?" Gunnery Sergeant Rodriguez had asked during her first field training exercise. Sarah had looked him straight in the eye. "I didn't come here to handle it, Gunny. I came here to excel at it." She'd proven herself through superior marksmanship, tactical intelligence, and an unshakable calm under pressure. By her 3rd year, she was leading mixed-gender units and earning respect through competence rather than demanding it through rank. Back at the rally, Sarah found herself automatically assessing security. The Secret Service presence was substantial. Agents positioned throughout the crowd, on rooftops, and in mobile command centers. Counter-sniper teams would be covering every possible angle. This was as secure as any public event could be, but old habits died hard. Sarah's eyes continued to sweep the perimeter, noting sight lines, escape routes, and potential threats. It was involuntary, like breathing Afghanistan. 2003 Captain Sarah Mitchell had been in her 2nd deployment when the convoy hit an improvised explosive device. The blast had killed 2 Marines instantly and left 3 others critically wounded, including her commanding officer, Major Williams. "Mitchell, you're in command," Williams had whispered through the radio before losing consciousness. Sarah had been 30 years old, responsible for 47 Marines in hostile territory with enemy forces closing in. The nearest medical evacuation was 20 minutes away, an eternity when your people were bleeding. She'd organized the defense perimeter, coordinated air support, and personally carried 2 wounded Marines to the landing zone while under sniper fire. When the dust settled, every Marine under her command had made it home alive. That day had changed her, not just professionally, but fundamentally. She'd learned that leadership meant being willing to put yourself between danger and the people counting on you. President Harrison was hitting his stride now, his speech building momentum. "We will not be divided by those who seek to tear us apart. We will stand together, work together, and build a future worthy of our children." Sarah noticed a slight shift in the crowd's energy. Nothing alarming, just the natural ebb and flow of a large gathering. But something had caught her attention. A movement in one of the warehouse windows across the street. The warehouse was about 400 yards from the stage, well within the security perimeter, but far enough to provide concealment for someone with the right equipment. Sarah's training kicked in automatically, her eyes focusing on the third-floor window where she'd seen the movement. There, just for a split second, the unmistakable glint of sunlight reflecting off metal. A scope, or a rifle barrel. Iraq. 2006 Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Mitchell had been preparing for her final deployment when the intelligence briefing had changed everything. A high-value target, an insurgent leader responsible for numerous attacks on American forces, had been located in a compound outside Fallujah. "We need someone who can think like a sniper to catch a sniper," the intelligence officer had explained. "Someone who understands how they think, how they operate." Sarah had spent weeks studying sniper tactics, learning to see the battlefield through their eyes. She'd learned about hide sites, escape routes, and the psychological profile of someone willing to kill from a distance. The knowledge had saved her unit multiple times during that deployment, helping them identify and neutralize threats before they could strike. Back at the rally, Sarah's mind processed the threat assessment in milliseconds. The warehouse window provided a clear shot to the podium. The angle was perfect. Any competent marksman could make that shot. She looked around for the nearest Secret Service agent. Agent Jennifer Walsh was positioned about 20 feet away, her attention focused on the crowd in front of the stage. Sarah started moving toward her, but the distance suddenly felt enormous. President Harrison was reaching the climax of his speech. "Together, we will ensure that America remains the beacon of hope and freedom for generations to come." Sarah's eyes flicked back to the warehouse window. This time, she saw it clearly, the dark outline of a rifle barrel extending slightly beyond the window frame. Sarah had exactly 3.2 seconds to make a decision that would change history. Option 1, try to reach Agent Walsh and alert security. But by the time she explained what she'd seen and the agent processed the information, it might be too late. Option 2, shout a warning. But that could cause a panic, and the shooter might fire immediately in response. Option 3, take direct action. The shot that ended her military career. Afghanistan. 2010 Colonel Sarah Mitchell had been on her final patrol before retirement when the call came in. Taliban snipers had pinned down a medical evacuation team trying to reach wounded Afghan civilians. "Mitchell, you're the only one with a clear shot," the ground commander had radioed. "Range is 800 meters. Wind is variable. Can you make it?" Sarah had studied the target through her scope. The enemy sniper was using civilian buildings as cover, making precision essential. One missed shot could kill innocent people. She'd taken a shot. Clean kill at 847 meters, allowing the medical team to save lives. But the Taliban sniper had been a 16-year-old boy forced into service. The investigation had cleared her of any wrongdoing, but Sarah had requested immediate retirement. She joined the military to protect people, not to kill children, even armed ones. In the present moment, Sarah made her choice. She launched herself toward President Harrison, her military training overriding every civilian instinct. 25 years of conditioning kicked in as she moved with purpose and speed that surprised even her. "Get down!" Sarah screamed, her command voice cutting through the cheers and applause. President Harrison looked up, confused by the commotion in the VIP section. The Secret Service agents began to react, their training taking over as they moved to assess the threat. But Sarah was already airborne. Sarah's tackle was textbook, low, powerful, designed to move the target out of harm's way with maximum efficiency. She hit President Harrison at waist level just as the rifle crack echoed across the stadium. The bullet passed through the space where Harrison's head had been a split second before, shattering the teleprompter and sending glass fragments across the stage. Sarah and the president tumbled behind the reinforced podium as chaos erupted throughout the stadium. Secret Service agents swarmed the stage, weapons drawn, while counter-sniper teams engaged the threat in the warehouse window. "Are you hit?" Sarah asked Harrison, her hands automatically checking for wounds. "I don't think so," Harrison gasped, still processing what had happened. "Who are you?" Retired Marine Colonel Sarah Mitchell, sir, and we need to keep moving. The evacuation under fire. Iraq 2005. Sarah had been leading a convoy through contested territory when insurgents had attacked with coordinated fire from multiple positions. Her vehicle had been disabled, leaving her unit trapped in a kill zone. Mitchell, we've got wounded and no way out, her radio operator had reported. Sarah had organized a fighting retreat, moving her Marines from cover to cover while calling in air support. She'd carried 2 wounded soldiers herself, making 3 trips through enemy fire to get everyone to safety. The evacuation had taken 45 minutes. Every Marine had made it out alive. Back on the stage, Sarah was already thinking 3 moves ahead. Mr. President, on my mark, we're moving to the armored car. Secret Service will form a protective detail, but I need you to stay low and keep moving. Can you do that? Harrison nodded, his political instincts giving way to trust in someone who clearly knew what she was doing. His shot had come from Thomas Mueller, a 34-year-old former military contractor with a history of mental illness and extremist views. Counter-sniper teams had neutralized the threat within 90 seconds of his first shot, but the damage to American politics could have been catastrophic. In the secure room beneath the stadium, President Harrison sat across from Sarah as FBI agents took their statements. Colonel Mitchell, Harrison said quietly, you saved my life. How did you see what trained Secret Service agents missed? Sarah looked out the small window at the warehouse where the threat had been eliminated. Different perspective, sir. I was looking for what could go wrong instead of managing what was going right. The leadership lesson. 2008 Major General Patricia Hayes had called Sarah into her office after Sarah's promotion to full colonel. Mitchell, you have a gift for seeing threats before they materialize. It's what makes you an exceptional officer. Thank you, ma'am. But I want you to understand something, Hayes had continued. That gift comes with a burden. You'll spend your life seeing dangers that others miss, threats that may never materialize. It's the price we pay for being the guardians. Sarah had nodded, not fully understanding then how prophetic those words would prove to be. Agent Walsh approached their table. Colonel Mitchell, preliminary investigation shows the shooter had been planning this for weeks. He chose that warehouse specifically because it wasn't in our primary security perimeter. How did you identify the threat? Sarah considered her response carefully. 25 years of looking at battlefields taught me that the most dangerous threats usually come from places you're not watching closely enough. 3 weeks later, Sarah received a call from the White House. Colonel Mitchell, this is President Harrison. I wanted to personally thank you again, and I have a proposition. Sarah had been expecting this call, though she'd hoped it wouldn't come. Sir, if you're offering me a position in government, I'm honored but not interested. I found my calling working with veterans. Actually, I was hoping you'd consider heading a new task force on event security. We need someone who thinks like you do, who sees threats from a warrior's perspective rather than a bureaucrat's. Sarah walked to her office window, looking out at the flag flying over the Veterans Center she'd built. Mr. President, with respect, I think I'm more valuable doing what I'm already doing, training the next generation of female veterans, helping them find their place in civilian life. Colonel, what you did that day reminded everyone that service doesn't end when you take off the uniform. The retirement ceremony, 2015 Colonel Sarah Mitchell had stood at attention as the American flag was folded and presented to her. 25 years of service, 3 combat deployments, countless Marines trained and led, and a record of leadership that had earned respect from every level of command. What will you do now? Her longtime friend and fellow Marine, Colonel Patricia Rodriguez, had asked. I'm going to help other women make the transition I'm making, Sarah had replied. Military skills translate to civilian leadership, but sometimes people need help seeing the connection. Sarah had looked at the flag in her hands, feeling the weight of all the promises it represented. Besides, you never really stop being a Marine. You just find new ways to serve. President Harrison's voice brought her back to the present. Colonel, what you've built with that Veterans Center is remarkable. But what happened at that rally showed something else. Showed that some people have a calling that transcends career changes. Sarah smiled. Mr. President, I learned a long time ago that the best way to serve your country isn't always the most obvious way. Sometimes it's training a female veteran to become a CEO. Sometimes it's helping someone with PTSD find purpose again. And sometimes it's being in the right place at the right time to tackle a president. Fair point. But if you ever change your mind about public service, you'll be the first to know. So 6 months later, Sarah Mitchell stood before a graduating class of 50 female veterans who had completed her leadership transition program. Some would become business executives, others teachers, several were starting their own companies. The skills you learned in the military don't disappear when you change careers, she told them. Leadership is leadership. Courage is courage. The ability to make split-second decisions under pressure doesn't go away just because you're wearing a business suit instead of a uniform. One of the graduates raised her hand. Colonel, what's the most important thing we should remember as we transition to civilian life? Sarah thought of President Harrison, of the warehouse window, of 25 years of service, and a moment when all of it had mattered most. Remember that once you've sworn to protect and defend, that oath doesn't have an expiration date. You'll find ways to serve for the rest of your life. Sometimes it'll be obvious, like the job you take or the company you run. Sometimes it'll be unexpected, like being in the right place at the right time when someone needs help. She looked out at the faces of women who had served their country with honor and were now ready to lead in civilian life. But most importantly, remember that your service continues every day. And how you treat people, how you solve problems, how you face challenges. You're not former Marines or former soldiers. You're Marines and soldiers who happen to be doing something else right now. The video of Sarah's tackle had been watched millions of times, turning her into an overnight hero. But Sarah preferred a different legacy. The 500 female veterans who had graduated from her program, the companies they'd started, the communities they'd led, the problems they'd solved. Because the truth was, heroes don't stop being heroes when they retire. They just find new battles to fight, new people to protect, new ways to serve. Colonel Sarah Mitchell had spent 25 years defending America, and she would spend the rest of her life defending it out of uniform, one veteran, one leader, one split-second decision at a time. Sometimes the most important battles are the ones no one sees coming, fought by people who never stopped being ready to serve when their country needed them most.